How to break free from your old self and unlock your highest reality. What if I told you that you're not stuck because you're weak, you're stuck because you're broadcasting an emotional frequency of an older version of you? A frequency which dictates what you believe in, what you notice, how you behave, and ultimately, what your reality is. And so long as you live in this frequency, you'll repeat the same loop of life, the same cycles that you've been repeating. And the good thing is, your frequency can change. You can change your frequency. And today I'm going to be teaching you how you can break free from the loop of circumstances, events, and people and become the highest version of you and thus unlock your highest reality. So let's do it. So the first part that I want to take you guys through is something that I like to call the identity complex. And all this is understanding your identity, yourself, your frequency, because the more you are aware of something, the easier it is to change. If you are unaware of it, it will go like unconscious programming in the back of your mind. You'll keep repeating the same cycles, the same patterns, the same circumstances, events, and people that keep showing up in your life and reinforcing old patterns, old beliefs, old systems. So if you do not change it, if you're not aware of it first, you cannot change it. So my metaphysical definition of identity is the inner pattern of consciousness that you consistently occupy. Now, what does that mean? Consciousness meaning frequency, identity, self, they're all the same, all different names for the same concept. And ultimately, whatever you are broadcasting internally, you will experience that externally. So you cannot experience externally love, healthy relationships, intimacy, if you are internally experiencing a state of lack, misery, loneliness. You cannot externally experience wealth if you're internalizing a state of misery, broke, lack, scarcity. You cannot experience. There is no way possible because whatever you internalize is what will be externalized. And this brings me into this point, why this is important. Your identity creates reality because consciousness expresses itself according to the state it occupies. Whatever state you're in is ultimately what will be created. Your state creates, as they say. So if you are internalizing a state that is not helping you achieve your goals, that is not helping you see the life that you wish to see, you will never see it externally speaking. The cause is up here. The effect is out here. We have been programmed to believe within society that things that happen to us are the cause and the effect is our mental state. But it's actually the opposite. Our internal, our mentalism, our mental state is the cause. The effect is the outside physical plane of existence. Now, I want to take you guys into this next part, which is what is the identity compromised of? Because identity is compromised of a couple things, with the main ones being, which I have them written right here. The main 5 that I think people should really fixate on is your thoughts, what you are consistently occupying within your brain, your self-talk, what are you thinking on a daily basis, your emotional patterns, which for those of you who don't know, your beliefs, which I'll touch on in a second, are comprised of your thoughts plus emotional charge, and emotion being energy in motion, that is the definition of emotion, your beliefs, the perspectives that you have on yourself and of life and your ability to succeed, your focus, because where your focus goes, energy flows. Whatever you are fixating on, that is ultimately what will be brought back to you within your life. I know a lot of people that want success, consciously speaking, but subconsciously, they're hyper fixating on all the negatives. They're complaining. They're looking at all of the evidence that proves that they're broke, that they're unhappy, that they're miserable, that they're lonely. And then they expect a different physical external result, which is insanity. And the last one being conviction. And conviction meaning the conviction that you have within yourself, that you are who you say you are, or the conviction that you have within life or success or business, whatever it may be, extrapolated across the board. So these are my 5: thoughts, emotional patterns, beliefs, perspective, focus, and conviction. Now, why is that important to understand? You might be like, well, how does that actually play into the role? Well, these all comprise of your identity. And on an understandable level, your thoughts that you have will trigger emotions, which then trigger the actions that you take, which then is seen as the evidence within your life. And the more that you reinforce this, you reinforce your identity. Now, some examples that I could give you is, let's say that you have a thought that all girls are bad. You have an emotion linked to that. That's anger, frustration. It is annoyance. The actions that you take is that when you go into a public setting or a scenario where you are now about to talk to a girl, you're going to unconsciously self-sabotage at a level that is unaware to you. And then you're going to experience evidence, because they might act funny based off what you've given them, where all girls are bad, which reinforces this whole belief. Now, another example I could give you is that imagine you have a businessman. You've got a CEO, some guy who's running a business. He has positive thoughts. He has thoughts that I love doing the work. I love serving the people that I serve. I love solving the problem that I solve. At the end of the day, he's going to have emotions like joy, love, passion, which will ultimately bleed into his actions, and he's going to take positive actions, moving the needle forward within his business, and then gain evidence that he is who he says he is, that all of these things are true, and which reinforces his whole identity. And ultimately, your old frequency will always give you your old life, because that is what you are broadcasting at a metaphysical level. And what we need to come to an understanding of is that whatever you are broadcasting is what will be brought back to you. If you are broadcasting the old version of you, the version of you who doesn't show up for you, the version of you who lacks confidence and conviction within themselves, the version of you that all the bad things happen to you, you will experience the same life over and over again. But a new frequency will bring you a new life, because ultimately a state shift is how you break the loop. That is how you break the loop. And it sounds too good to be true. I've heard that quite a lot from people that I know. I'll tell them these things. I will break it down in a way that is understandable to them, and they'll tell me it sounds way too good to be true. But what if I told you that the greatest lie that us as a human race ever adopted was complexity? We think complexity is the way that we get to our goals. We think complexity, things need to be tough, because complexity ultimately is seductive. It makes us think that we're doing better. We add more steps to the process. We make things harder than it is, because we think that that's what we deserve. And we only get what we think we deserve at the end of the day. But simplicity is the greatest skill and trait that a person can hold. The more simple you create life, the more simple that you can allow yourself to be, that you can allow life to be, the easier you will see results within your whole entire life. So now the next part of this video that I want to touch on is the frequency shift. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, and no, I'm not talking about some woo-woo shit. I'm not talking about crystals or any of that type of stuff. I'm clear cut and simple with you guys. I'm trying to be black and white and make this make as much sense as possible, right? There's no spiritual gaslighting here. There is no woo-woo sense behind it. This can all be explained on multiple levels. And my definition for frequency, so that we can come to a broader and better understanding, is that frequency ultimately is the vibrational state of your consciousness. Now, whether people would like to argue with that or not is up to them, but at the end of the day, your state of consciousness is how you show up in life. If you're operating in lack, if you're operating in scarcity, loneliness, anxiety, fear, whatever it may be, shame, guilt, you are going to see more of those. You're going to see more circumstances, events, scenarios, people that bring about more of that into your life. So I want you guys to become very aware of that. That is the definition. I'm not trying to sit here and say that it's this woo-woo thing where you sit there like this and everything will come into your life and it's all good. But what I am saying is that it is in direct contribution to what you are experiencing on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, on a life level. So what is your frequency compromised of? At the end of the day, your frequency, let's see what we got. We'll do gray. Your frequency is comprised of your most dominant thoughts, the things that you allow to be the main shareholder of your mind on a day-to-day basis. Are you consistently telling yourself that you are worthy of success? Are you consistently telling yourself that you deserve love, that you deserve abundance or financial wealth? Whatever you are consistently, dominantly thinking on a day-to-day basis is a main shareholder of your frequency. Your emotional state. Are you emotionally in alignment with what you desire? Because what we need to conceptualize is that we aren't in this game of life. We aren't working towards these goals, just because, I want the money, or I want the girl or the guy, or I want the business. No, you want the state that it's going to give you. You want to feel the love. You want to feel the courage, the joy, the pride. You want to feel the good emotions linked to it. That's the only reason that we are going for any of our goals in this life. Don't get misconfused. We are going for those goals to receive an emotional state as the reward. Now, on a conscious level, you won't be aware of this. You become hyperfixated on the money, on the girl, on the business, whatever area of life. But deep down, subconsciously speaking, we are seeking that emotion in return. We're seeking the emotion as the reward. So another thing that your frequency is compromised is your assumptions. your assumptions of life, the assumptions that you hold of yourself, of success, of money? Do you assume that money is hard to come by? Do you assume that you are worthy of success? Do you assume that business is hard? Do you assume that working hard is the only contributor to success? Whatever you assume to be true, ultimately will show up within your actions and your day-to-day life. Your self-concept, how do you see yourself? So if you assume that hard work is the only contributor to success, but you don't see yourself as a hard worker, you see this this cognitive dissonance there. There's a mental dissonance because you believe that hard work equals success, but you aren't a hard worker. Then you're not going to feel worthy of success. Therefore, you will not be successful. Hope that makes sense. Your beliefs. What do you believe to be true about yourself, about life, about people, about business, about love? All of these things are a main shareholder of your frequency. And the last one is the conviction that you have within yourself. And don't get this misconfused. Conviction is not hope. I know from a lot of stances, we might hear the word faith and we think, oh, it's hope. I hope everything will work out. No, conviction is very different. Hope is like you kind of believe something to be true, but you're not too sure if it's 100% true. Faith, conviction is knowing that when you set out for something, you're going to hit it. When you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. When you say that this thing's going to work out for me, you have conviction that it's going to happen. So the higher level of conviction that you have within yourself, within life, within your business, within success, within your ability to manifest love, then you will easily attain it. You will more easily attain it than someone who is a lower level of conviction. I would like you guys to conceptualize conviction as fuel. Let's say conviction is fuel. And at the end of the day, you could try any different technique in the manifestation realm. You could try affirmations, vision board, self-talk in the mirror, visualizations, meditation, and ultimately the main predictor of success across all of those techniques is the conviction that you have within yourself and within the technique itself. If you lack conviction within your ability for that to bring about the result that you're desiring, then you won't hit it. If you lack conviction within the technique that you're doing, then you won't get the result that you're desiring. So that is what makes up your frequency, which I would like to touch a little bit deeper on the emotional state, the emotional baseline, because I feel that this is quite a consistent pattern that I see within a lot of people, a lot of individuals that I've personally experienced and had encounters with. And it is almost humorous because I see them and they have goals. I remember talking to a guy not too long ago and he was telling me his goals for his business. He's got a startup and he has these grand goals of hitting a certain amount of dollars per month within his business. He wants to live this certain lifestyle, break free from, his current job at wherever he's working at the moment. And he holds all of the things that are actually pulling him back from hitting those goals. And what I mean by that is he is living in a state of fear, doubt, scarcity, shame, and anger. And I can tell someone's frequency quite easily based off what they say and what they fixate on. Someone who fixates on complaining, on lack, on scarcity, on all the bad, or judging others will ultimately, that's what they're going to experience. But someone who fixates on the good, on the positive, on the happiness, on the love, on the abundance, they will experience those things instead. So picture this left side, the red side, all of the lower energetic emotions. So picture there's a diagram. I probably should have drawn that out. I'll draw it here. Let's use a different color though. Blue? No. Let's use black. So picture this is an emotional energetic chart. And within here, we have different layers. So the higher you go up, the higher the energy and the better the emotions, let's say. At the bottom, you have apathy, guilt, shame, anger, all of the things that you do not wish to experience. They actually lower your energetic field, your vibrational state. Yet that's where majority of people operate. They operate in this I'll leave all of them there. They operate in this lower half of the energetic plane, the things that they do not wish to experience. But the people that are the most successful operate in the higher planes of energetic emotion, the things that they wish to see happen, they are ultimately embodying on a daily basis. So what I will say is that if you are operating in here, if you are operating in fear, doubt, scarcity, shame, and anger, you are broadcasting to the universe that that's what you seek in return. And it's almost a funny concept. An analogy or an example that I could give you is, imagine that you went to a foreign country where you spoke none of the language that they speak there, right? You go to a restaurant and the waiter comes over, he's speaking in that language, you can't speak that language, so you decide you're just gonna point at the menu. Imagine if you look at the menu and the waiter's looking at the menu and you go, I don't want this thing, I don't want that thing. And you put heavy emphasis on the thing that you don't want, and then you go, yeah, but I want that. What do you think he's gonna bring you? Realistically, what do you think that waiter's gonna bring you? They're gonna bring you the thing that you were saying, I don't want, I don't want. And that's what I find. People hyperfixate and focus in areas of their life that they do not wish to see again or repeat within their life. So the moment that you can switch fear to a level of calm, doubt to a level of certainty and contentment, scarcity to self-worthiness, shame to self-love, anger to enlightenment, what you are going to find is that your reality will change too. You're going to see circumstances, events, and people where that is broadcasting all of these positive emotions, these positive emotional frequencies. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all of these emotions right here are your old frequency. It's the version of yourself. It's that old self that you were trying to get rid of, so to speak. You were trying to elevate past that consciousness so that you can actually hit all your goals in life. And realistically speaking, your new frequency embodies all of these, all of the positive emotions, all of the higher energetic emotions. And the gap is right here in the middle between your old frequency and your new frequency. You cannot be in two frequencies at the same time. There's no such thing as the middleman. The same way as you cannot hold a neutral thought. It's either a thought is serving you or it's controlling you, a belief, sorry. It's either the belief is serving you and helping you get towards the goals and the life that you want to live, or it is controlling you and keeping you stuck within the life that you do not wish to consistently see. Now, I put this here because I want everyone to understand this. Your new life will cost you your old frequency. You cannot be in two places at the same time. You cannot have one foot in and one foot out. You can't be half in the door and half out. You need to be all in. Your new frequency will cost you your old identity. Your also, so to speak, what's the term I'm using for? Identity death. That's all it is. And your breakthrough will almost always come after a breakdown, because that is your old self trying to bring you back. It's trying to bring you back to your old emotional patterns, your old ways of thinking, your intrusive thoughts, all the negative. But you need to break past that and understand that it is no more than the tricks that the old frequency is trying to play on you, this old identity, this old self. It is trying to bring you back because you've compounded a lot of energy over your lifespan towards this frequency. Think about it. If you dropped a rock every single day, or every time you had a thought, or every time you had a negative belief, you would have a mountain. Over the span of months, years, decades, you would have a massive mountain. And that is like a spiritual entity, think of it, this old frequency of yours that just kind of like follows you around, and all it wants to do is stay alive, right? It wants to stay alive. And the way that it stays alive is that it gains energy from you. The more energy you invest in it, the healthier it is. So in order to adopt this new frequency, it will cost you your old one. And you need to, what I mean by that is every time you think a thought that your old frequency, the old version of you would think, you need to just let it pass. Don't give it energy. Don't think about it too much. Don't think, oh my days, I'm thinking negative thoughts again. Oh, what am I going to do? No, you just don't fixate on that because you know what you want. You're going to instead be aware, okay, understand, that's my old frequency trying to come back. What do I want to think to be true? What do I want to believe to be true? How do I want to feel? How do I want to act? What would the higher version of me do, say, feel? How would he behave? How would he respond? And that's ultimately what you embody. Now, I want to touch on this. Your state creates. A lot of people operate from the notion of doing over being. They take all the right physical action, but they're in the wrong state. And what we need to conceptualize is that there are three planes of existence: physical, mental, and spiritual. A lot of people hyperfixate on the physical because it's what we see right now. I've got my whiteboard, I've got my clothes on, I've got my whiteboard markers, the room, everything. It's physical, I can see it. But what we need to understand is that there's more unseen than there is seen. And ultimately, the more that you can get and understand the unseen level of life, the metaphysical level of life, you will prosper. You will prosper. So what I'm trying to get at is that People hyperfixate on the physical plane of existence only. And don't get me wrong, you can still see a level of success when you're operating only in the physical plane, but definitely not as much as you could if you were working multidimensionally or metaphysically speaking. Because think of it like you got a pie chart, right? 3 parts. If you're working only in one, that's only 33% of your whole potential to achieve what you want. So you were 33% aligned. You're taking all the right action, but spiritually speaking, you're in the wrong conviction. You don't see yourself the way that you want to see yourself. You don't think you deserve success. And mentally speaking, you hold beliefs that don't serve you. So imagine if you used all of it, all 33%, all 100% of the pie. What would happen? You would find that getting to your goals, getting to your desired state of life would be easier. It would be more enjoyable. There would be less struggle and you would feel aligned. And that's why I want to put high emphasis on this. And if it's one thing you take away from this video is being, then doing. Now, don't get me wrong. People could have taken that anyway and then jump from the one side of the spectrum from only prioritizing doing to then jump to the other spectrum, which is only prioritizing being. I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna meditate and I'm gonna visualize and I'm gonna do affirmations and I'm gonna do vision boards, but then they don't take any work. We live in a physical plane of existence. We need to take the physical action in order to hit our goals and our desired state of life. So work multidimensionally. Take the physical action, but only once you're in the right mental and spiritual plane first. And ways that you can do this is wake up in the morning. Allow yourself, your brain, just chill. Allow your brain to really conceptualize life. Sit there, close your eyes, meditate, become aware of your thoughts, and then visualize a scenario or a life where you're living in accordance with what you want. What state are you in? What emotions are you feeling? How do you behave? How do you act? How do you see that version of you? The version of you that is crushing all of your goals. And that's how you get in the right state, or it's at least the way that I get in my state first thing in the morning before I start taking the physical action. And listen, there's no one size fits all. Like I said earlier, there's a bunch of techniques, a bunch of methods, and ultimately your conviction that you have in them is whether you'll see results in them. So you could have conviction in a bunch of techniques. You could have conviction in affirmations, you could have conviction in vision boards, visualization, meditation, whatever it is, and you will see results in them. So find whatever works for you, but I'm just telling you what works for me, ultimately. But one thing that I hope that you can take away from this video is that it's being first and then doing. Being first and then doing. Not being overdoing, not doing over being first and then doing. So, next part. So the third and final part that I want to take you guys through in this video is embodying the higher self. And ultimately what this is stepping into that new frequency. How do you step into it? How do you embody this state, this version of you that is in direct alignment with your goals and the life and the version of you that you want to be? Because ultimately your frequency determines your reality. So if you're in the right frequency, you will be able to hit your desired reality, your desired goals for life. So I've tried to simplify it as much as possible, and I've simplified it to a 3-step process, a 3-step formula that hopefully majority of you guys can wrap your head around, because I really want you guys to understand this in detail, and after this video, go straight after your goals. I want you to apply everything that you've learned and become that new version of you to hit your goals, to materialize the life that you wish to materialize. And I've been able to conceptualize this and break it down in a 3-step process, which is your identity, which is comprised of your thoughts that you think, your state, which is the feelings that you occupy, and your behavior, which is the actions that you take, which I've broken down in detail over here. So let's do it. Identity, simply put, is how would the highest version of you think? Now, before I go further, I really want you guys to get a piece of paper and a pen and sit down and go through these questions. Ask yourself and be brutally honest with yourself. How would that version of me think? How would the highest version of me think? You would probably think, I am successful. I am financially abundant. I have everything that I need. I am loved. I am the highest version of myself. You would think all of those things. And something that I don't want you guys to do is this. I will be successful. Because this is the ego, this is the old version of you that is trying to pull you back. It's trying to hold you and be like, yeah, I don't think I'm worthy of saying I am successful, but I'll say I will be successful because I kind of believe it. And what happens is that what we need to understand is that time is an illusion. Really. It is only made for society to run smoothly. And don't get me wrong, without time, we would all be screwed. We wouldn't be able to get to places when we need to on time. Things wouldn't run as smoothly. But what we need to understand is that your mind and your mental and spiritual plane don't conceptualize time as the way that the physical plane does. There is no time frame that it works off. It only works or it doesn't. And ultimately, when you're telling yourself, I will be successful, what you're doing is putting it off into the future. That's what you're doing. You're putting it off into a later date. And when you tell yourself that every single day, so people think they're doing the right thing when it comes to manifesting their dream life. They sit there and they be like, I will be successful. I will be rich. I will have a loving relationship. I will have my dream job. I will have that car. But you're always putting it off. And your brain doesn't understand that. So you're telling yourself, yeah, but not yet. And when you tell yourself that every single day, it's always going to be in the future. So what I want you guys to do is switch from this state into this, which is the direct embodiment of the thoughts that you would think if you were that higher version of you, which is, I am successful. I am loved. I am abundant. I am confident. That's what you need to step into. That's why get a piece of paper, write down, how would the highest version of me think? And write down as many thoughts as you can think of. How would that version of you think? How would that version of you operate? Which brings me into the next one, which is your state. And simply put, your state is how would the highest version of you feel? Okay? So write it down and ask yourself, how would you feel? You would probably feel loved. You would feel confident. You would feel successful. You would feel abundant. You would feel worthiness. You would feel all of the emotions that you're not letting yourself feel right now. And the more that you can understand this, the more that you can understand that the highest version of you would feel calm, proud, happy, content, love, confident, worthy, and abundant. And that's what you're going to step into. Because like I said earlier, your state creates. So you always need to get in the right state first, and then you take the action second. So hopefully on this piece of paper, this can be as long as you want. It honestly doesn't matter. You just want to become so detailed and aware of what it is that you want. What's the version of me that I want to embody? And that's what you're going to step into on a day-to-day basis. Which brings me into my third point, behavior. How would the highest version of you act on a daily basis? What actions would they take? Let's say the highest version of you is a multi-millionaire CEO. What actions would he take, or she? What actions would they take? Would they sleep in past 9 o'clock? Probably not. They would probably wake up relatively early. They would probably have time to think, allow themselves to meditate, get in the right state, and then they would take the physical action. They would do the things that they need to do. Because a lot of the times we know what we need to do, but we link it to our identity. And because we link it to our identity and the version of us, we don't feel worthy of taking that action sometimes. So the moment that you can break these 3 questions down is the moment that you can become more detailed with the version of you that you need to become. But one thing I want to preface is that you do not need to take massive action right off the bat. I'm not expecting you guys to be like, you know what, that CEO version of me, he's working 12-hour days. You know, he's working 12-hour days. I need to work 12-hour days tomorrow. Listen, if you can, go for it. But what I'm saying is ultimately what will happen is you're still in this transitioning period. Your brain will be like, oh, whoa, this is too much for me. Your dopamine levels won't even be linked to all that work, to enjoy all that work. You're going to begin hating it. You're going to bring negative thoughts around it, negative emotions. So all I want you guys to do is gain consistent evidence. And right here, I've got a little staircase, and ultimately it's 1%ers every single day. Can you start embodying the actions that version of you would take every single day and become more like that person? Because what you're going to find is something important, which I'll write down here, is consistency, but ultimately it will lead to energetic momentum. And this is your superpower. I might make a video on that one day, just momentum in itself. I've experienced periods of my life when I've been in direct energetic momentum and alignment, and I could work all day long. I could work on all my goals. I could, not do anything that people deem as fun. I don't need to go out. I don't need to hang out with my mates or drink or whatever the case is. I would just be working, and all of my joy comes from the work because I have momentum. So that's what I want you guys to get to, is a state of momentum, physically speaking. But ultimately, what I want you guys to do is start embodying this higher version of you. So let's say you got the piece of paper, let's say you got a pen, and you wrote down everything that I told you to. You asked yourself these questions and you were genuinely honest. How would that version of you think, feel, and act? Now, your goal is to embody that every day. When you wake up, can you calm your mind? Can you calm your ego mind to then embody that state? How would it feel? And that's what you want to do. You always want to link emotions to visualizations. You always want to link emotions to the techniques that you're doing because that's what your brain is craving. So when you can play a picture within your brain of you being successful, driving the car, you have the relationship, you have the business, extrapolate it to whatever area of life you want to see success in, can you link the emotions to that? Can you link the pride? Can you link the confidence? Can you link the love? Even right now, when I close my eyes and I think of things that I want to achieve, I feel it. And the more you feel it, the more likely you will achieve it. So I hope this video was very valuable to you guys. If it wasn't, hit me up. I don't know. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' response to these type of videos. It's very different to my last couple of videos. And if you guys have any topics that you would like me to cover in future videos, drop them in the comments. And if you have any questions whatsoever, or you need help whatsoever, hit me up. My DM's always open. I love everyone. But like always, see you in the next one.